Bright afternoon, everyone. For today's discussion, we will tackle about the Maragtas, the history and legend in Spanish translated literature. We will know how those people from Borneo immigrated here in the Philippines and established their living and customs in the island of Panay. I know most of you here aren't familiar with this term Maragtas, but it's actually a history collection of folk tales, legends, stories of the people of Panay before the domination of Spaniards in the Philippines. This collection revolves around the Datus who escaped from their land Borneo because of the suppression of their leader. So, as we go on with our discussion this afternoon, we will encounter and reminisce how rich our culture, traditions, political system, and social organization before the domination of the Spanish, particularly in our region, Visayas. Alright, so the Maractas is written by Pedro Alcantara Monteclaro. It is a book collection which is all about the history of Panay from the first inhabitants of the Bornean immigrants from which are descended to go or charge of state to the arrival of Spaniards. This book it is actually covers the story of the region from the earliest inhabitants who were the Bornean immigrants to the arrival of the Spanish colonizers. Alright, so this book is a collection of stories, legends, and historical accounts which provides valuable insights into the region's past. So, this book were actually a compilation of those legends, folktales, stories of how the customs of the people from before the colonization of the Spanish or the Spaniards. These are actually the pre-existing people, the Atis or the Lights. Alright, so it was written in Mixoligaynon and Crinarea languages, which are the native languages of the island. This version was translated by various authors into different languages in Tagalog and of course in English. The first edition was actually published in 1907 by Kadapig Sang Banwa Iloilo. The second edition in 1929 by Makina Ugalingon Press, and the third edition in 1957 by Sol Gueco with orthographic changes and a more colloquial version. Right, so before we proceed to the book itself or the story, the legends, the folk tales, we will first get to know who is the author of this book. Alright, so Pedro Alcantara Monteclaro y Nacionales was actually the author of this book. He was born on October 15, 1850 in Miagao, Iloilo. So it is already exist or it was already published during the 19th century, but eventually it was not yet known. Right, so he was the eldest son of Captain Bartolome Monteclaro y Tupaz and Ramona Nacionales y Orbe. He had three brothers named Ciriaco, Serafin, and Jose. He received his early training and education from his parents, who were devout Roman Catholics. Right, so during the time he enrolled in the parochial school where he enrolled in town's parochial school run by the priors or run by the nuns and fathers. Alright, so during his college, he studied at the Seminario Colegio de Haro where he obtained his Bachelor of Arts degree in 1865. So when in terms of political ambitions of Monteclaro, in 1865 or 1891 rather, he was elected as Teniente Mayor with Simon Fermesa as Gobernadorcillo. Alright, so Monteclaro's leadership roles continued to evolve as the years went by. Okay, in 1892 also, Pedro Alcantara Monteclaro held the position of Capitan Municipal. This role showcased his leadership and involvement in local governance during the time. So as the years went by, he was elected into a higher position. And of course, during the 1895 to 1898, Pedro held the position as Juez de Paz or the Justice of the Peace. During this time, he demonstrated leadership skills and played a significant role in his community. Alright, so in terms of if you don't know what is Juez de Paz, it is Spanish for justice for the peace. It is a position that handles minor disputes and cases in a town and or municipality. Right, moving on to the book. The Maragtas or the word Maragtas is actually an equivalent of the Spanish word historia or the word history in English. The provenance of Maragtas begins with the author's own statement in his foreword to the readers. Okay, right. So the first section of his book is actually the provenance or the foreword to the readers, which is actually the message of the author towards the readers, and of course his own statement about this account. Right, so the Maragtas is a legend or folk story of the Philippines, specifically focusing on the island of Panay, which comprises Iloilo, Aklan, Capiz, and Antique. It's about the story of how a group of people from Borneo, led by Dato Puti, migrated to Panay, purchased land from the indigenous Ati people, and established new settlements and a system of governance. Alright, so as we see there, in this context, the Maragtas was actually aptly titled as it narrates the history and stories of the Panay region in the Philippines. But have you ever wondered why Panay was the chosen land of those datos to settle? When in fact there is actually Luzon, there is actually other islands in Visayas and in Mindanao. And why is it that they settled there in Panay? So let's find out as we go on with our discussion. Alright, so, but before that, we need to locate where is the Borneo located. Alright, so Borneo is the third largest island in the world and is located in Southeast Asia. The island is surrounded by several seas, the South China Sea to the northwest, the Sulu Sea to the northeast, the Celebes Sea to the east, and the Java Sea to the south. This was actually, or the Borneo, this was actually located in the lower part in the Philippines. Alright, so moving on, so the content of Maragtas, the content of this is there are actually 10 datus or chiefs who escaped the tyranny of Dato Makatunaw of Borneo and immigrated to the island of Panay. They bought the lowland plains of the islands from Maricudo, or Chief Maricudo, the leader of that indigenous Aitas, for a price of a solid gold salakot or hat. Alright, so the 10 Bornean datos led by Dato Puti escaped from Dato Makatunaw's tyranny in Borneo due to his oppressive rule. This includes high taxes. So Dato Makatunaw imposed an excessive tributes and taxes burdened the common people and datos alike. And of course, the abuse of power. Makatunaw arbitrarily seized property and punished people without any reason. And of course, the lack of freedom. The datos felt they had no true freedom under his regime. Alright, so according to this legend, those named chiefs are their families are the very ancestors of the entire Visayan population. So according to this account, those people or those 10 datos who settled there in Panay was actually the main ancestors or the main bloodline of these people who live there in Panay, specifically on those provinces of Iloilo, Capiz, Aklan, and Antique. This is the legend that has been celebrated yearly in the Ati-Atihan Festival since the late 1950s when it became a part of the annual feast of Santo Niño on Calibo, Aklan. The Ati-Atihan Festival originates from the island of Panay, which is specifically in the province of Aklan in the Philippines. So it is believed to have started as a pagan animistic ritual where the indigenous people would honor their anitos or ancestral spirits and give thanks for a bountiful harvest. So in the Maragtas, also, we all know that the price of the solid or the price of the land was actually bartered into a just solid gold salakot or hat. But have you ever wondered why those people agreed to have that price in exchange of their land? So in the Maragtas, the gold salakot is a significant item that symbolizes the wealth and status of the Bornean datus. Specifically, it was offered by Dato Puti to the Ati chieftain Maricudo as part of the barter agreement for the lowlands of Panay Island. The golden salakot, along with other gifts like long gold necklace called panangyad, represented the datos' attempts to peacefully acquire land from the indigenous Ati people. So right now, we have seen that the hat, the necklace, was actually a symbol of wealth of the Bornean people in exchange of the land. So the salakot itself is a type of conical hat. And in this book or in this account, the golden salakot signified the datos' wealth and high status. Right. So let's move forward. So the 10 datos are actually mentioned in the story. So let's all name them one by one. First, we have Dato Puti, Dato Sumakwil, Dato Bangkaya, Dato Palburong, Dato Paduhinog, Dato Dumangol, Dato Dumalugdog, Dato Lubay, Dato Valenzuela, and Dato Umangsil. So for the chapter 1, it is the description of Panay and its inhabitants. I have categorized this chapter into three. First one, the island of Panay, its description, where it is was located. And for the second one, the Ati or the Aitas Negretos, which is the original inhabitants. And for the last one, the preparation of the arrival of the Datos. Alright, so the first one, we have the island of Panay. Monte Claro's account begins by locating Panay within the Philippine archipelago. It is described as one of the largest islands. He emphasizes that island or this island natural resources, including its fertile soil, abundant forest, and numerous rivers. This is intended to convey the idea that Panay was a desirable place to settle. Right, so the Borneans, led by Dato Puti, choose to go to Panay Island because of the fertile land. Panay Island offered fertile land suitable for agriculture and settlement. And for the second one is also abundant resources. There is abundant resources in the island, which is rich in natural resources, providing opportunities for fishing, hunting, and trade. And for, of course, it is a strategic location, which is allow for trade and cultural exchange with other islands and neighboring countries. And lastly, it is less populated, where it makes it easier for the Borneans to establish a new settlement. This chapter often includes descriptions of the island's scenic beauty, mentioning mountains, plains, and coastal areas. The next one, the Ati or Aitas or Negretos, which is the original inhabitants. So Monte Claro's account describe the physical appearance, the way of life, and the social structure of these people. So Monte Claro's description includes details about the Atis or Aitas physical characteristics, typically describing them as having dark skin, short stature, and kinky hair. For the way of life, they survive through hunting and gathering. They are very good in using bow and arrow, and of course for simple agriculture, for planting rice and other herbal medicines, and they are considered also as nomadic or semi-nomadic. When we say nomadic, it actually refers to those people or nomadic groups move regularly, often seasonally, to find food, water, and grazing land for their animals. These are actually people who does not settle there for a long period of time, but rather a short period of time or seasonal. So they are considered as no fixed settlement. They may not have a fixed settlement or permanent home, and they travel and live in temporary shelters. They depend on natural resources. Their livelihood depends on herding, hunting, gathering, or fishing. And when we see also semi-nomadic, it refers to the have fixed settlement but still engage in seasonal migrations or movements. And for the social structure, they have simple social organizations, chieftain and wife. The chieftain is their leader, and the wife of the leader is called chieftain and wife. And of course, their dwellings, they live in their in a place where they erect their houses, such as forest or island. Next, we have the preparation of the arrival of the Dato. It is where the setting the stage for the land purchase. The portrayal of the Ati as having a less developed concept of land ownership sets the stage of the subsequent transaction, where the Datos purchase a portion of the land. So this chapter actually the part where the Datos were was about to purchase the land in Panay.